first and foremost, it's great to see you, Midge Pines.
Yes, thank you.
And for those of us who know you, spent time with you, it is just great to see you here in the Sukkah on this beautiful afternoon here in Greensboro. One of the nice things about being in a Sukkah and being together is that you can hear the sounds around us.
And we have children in the background.
Kids are playing on the playground. That's just part of what it is to be in a Sukkah. But it's great to be with you. You were a president of Temple Emanuel.
Yes.
That goes back to what years?
1994.
1994. So why don't you tell us a little bit about being the president of Temple Emanuel? What was that time like? Almost 30 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
It was the year before Fred came.
Right.
It was actually.
I know he's very grateful to you.
He came in like a thunderstorm.
Yeah.
And he just went his way.
He's an amazing guy, amazing leader and a great rabbi.
Yes. And we were so fortunate.
Yes.
Because he brought a new light to the temple. Everybody brings their light.
Seriously.
Everybody's different. But he was exciting, he was passionate, and I think we chose well.
Absolutely.
It's been this long, we would never be here without him.
I agree with you.
I was reading a book that Kurt Lauenstein wrote it was the 100 Years of Temple Emanuel.
Yeah.
And it said that back in 1948, Temple Emanuel went from 400 members to 150.
Huh.
That was disastrous.
Sure.
During my presidency, just right before I was elected, we had a similar situation at the temple because people were leaving for two reasons. First, there was talk about moving the building away from Green Street.
Right.
That was very unpopular with many, many people.
Yeah.
And the rabbi that we had, Rabbi Task, nobody wanted him to leave. Everybody wanted him to leave. It was a terrible situation.
Yeah.
So we finally, he left, and we had to get another rabbi, and it was short notice. They chose Rabbi Harkavy straight out of school. And the congregation was hurting.
Yeah.
So it was unfair to him. Being brand new, he didn't know how to handle that. So he had 5 years here. And I was the first president with Fred.
Right.
Which was interesting because you never knew what he was doing. Hanging flags, buying air conditioners, changing the rows.
Right.
Moving, big one, moving the organ. So it was an exciting presidency, and it was exhausting.
Yeah.
But it benefited the temple.
Most definitely. Your presidency, though, was historic. You were the first woman to serve in the role of president.
I was the first president. There were other women who I thought deserved it more, but they were just hesitant.
Right.
We were still back a long time ago. Things were different.
Right.
Women didn't take leadership roles.
Right.
But like I said before, Beth David had a woman president way before we did. And she did a wonderful job over there.
Right.
I was very proud to be asked. I was anxious for the job. I had been Sisterhood president.
Right.
So I had a little background. Even though I wasn't raised Jewish, I didn't know how to play mahjong. I didn't know how to... I did know how to set up for Seder, for Hanukkah. And I learned all this with my children.
Right.
And Temple in that time era, everybody did everything. There wasn't a caterer. Everybody did for everybody else.
Right.
If there was a bar mitzvah, which was on a Friday night, never on Saturday.
Yeah.
Marnie Ruskin was the first one to have a Saturday bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah for one of her children. So things were different.
When did that shift? When did the shift take place with the Ruskins? What year roughly was that? Was that in the 80s?
I don't know if Harkavy was still the rabbi,
Or if it was during Fred's time?
or I don't think it was Fred's. So
Yeah,
it was
maybe either Tasker
before.
or Harkavy, yeah.
Yeah, because with Arnie Task, it was always Friday night.
Right.
And we'd read the Torah on Friday night.
I see.
So
I heard something about these special cakes that you would make, like a Torah cake. Tell us about that.
you want the Torah? I think.
Yeah.
Well, I learned how to do it from somebody and
Mm-hmm.
took classes at GTCC. And I was the only one who could make a Torah cake. I mean, it looked like a Torah,
Right.
but you could eat it.
But you could eat it, right. And so it was like, looked like a scroll, was that it?
Exactly looked like a scroll.
Oh, God.
We used paper towel holders for the finials,
Yeah.
and the rest of it was all edible.
Wow. This is like something that would be on one of the cooking channels, where they make all these fancy cakes. But getting back to leadership for a second, I mean, there have now been
Lots of women
presidents. Our current president, Amy Epstein, I think is the 5th woman to serve in that role. Temple, for the first time in our history, has a full-time serving rabbi who's a woman. There had been a rabbi who had come here, Rabbi Jerry Newberg, I think was still in rabbinic school, that was immediately preceding me. But women's leadership, as you were saying, in this congregation was pretty outstanding, just not in the presidential role until you did
Right.
it. What was that like?
Well, I had good presidents on both sides of me.
Yeah.
I had a great board.
Mhm.
It was really very easy. I had so much cooperation.
Yeah.
And yet it was difficult because everything you wanted to change, we were pretty stick in the mud, do it the old way.
Right.
And the old way was super reform
Yeah. What do you mean, just in terms of?
of even the services. Fred's the first one who marched the Torah around the congregation. Nobody ever did that.
Yeah.
Or nobody in my lifetime.
Right.
So that was, it was exciting because it was something new.
Yeah.
Gave
Yeah.
you a little part of the ceremony instead of just sitting there and being an observer.
Right. Right. The participatory
And
elements. Yeah.
singing, Fred tried very hard. He's still trying.
Yeah, music is a very important part of what this congregation's current expression is. And,
Right.
I see it that way going forward. I mean, it's been. I always felt like the past 18 years we've been a very musical congregation. You're saying that it hadn't always been that way in terms of
No,
the
in
type of
fact,
things
we
did.
had the First Presbyterian Church choir sing at our services,
Right.
and the music was beautiful.
Yeah.
It wasn't in prayer; it was just beautiful music.
Right.
Then we went more to our participation in the guitars and singing.
Right.
So, which is better? I don't know. I don't know. We may go back the other way. Who knows?
I like the way that we do it now. I think that
Well-
we're really placed very firmly. I mean, this has been a cutting-edge Reform congregation, which is if you want to say that transition took place, it really took us into the next era of Reform Judaism. And so when you go to a biennial now, you're like, oh, this is very recognizable. In fact, we might even have a few things that we can participate, that we could contribute to, to even help it, as it goes forward too. Yeah.
Well, in fact, the interview that they're doing right now for
Yeah.
Henry Isaacson, twice he mentions in the interview how he loved the organ.
Yeah.
We haven't played that organ
In a while. So you speak of an interview with Henry Isaacson. So you're involved with this incredible project. I want to hear more about it.
Well, I thought that everybody in their 90s, and we have 37 members in their 90s.
Wow,
That's a lot.
it really is.
That is a lot.
Yeah.
They each have a different thing to offer.
Mhm.
Living in Greensboro, being Jewish, things they encountered. Jewish life in Greensboro is fairly easy because of the Cohn family. They were so well respected.
Yeah.
And it's funny, if you move to a house here in Greensboro, your neighbors will ask you what church you belong to.
Right.
And you can say Temple Emanuel, and they're very happy with that,
Yeah.
as long as you belong.
That's right. That's right. I've often felt that about this part of the South.
Yes,
Right?
and that's
It's a very religiously focused part of the world, and as long as God or community
is in your life.
It's in your life, you're good.
You're good.
You're not going to get the rejoinder of the conversation.
So I don't know what happens to those who are not.
But Jewishly, this is a very highly affiliating place.
Yes.
Yeah, and yet you're working on this project now to bring together the stories of those who are in their 90s.
Those who are in their 90s.
Yeah.
They have funny stories and happy stories, and they've seen a lot in life. Figure what they've been through.
Sure.
They've been through our kids' school books, their history books.
Right.
Not World War I. You'd have to be 110, I think.
Right.
But you still had the end of the Spanish flu, and so many things were just like what we're doing now with COVID.
Right.
Then we had World War II. We had the Great Depression. They've been through a lot,
Absolutely.
and they can remember what happens with their parents.
Yeah. So what are you doing with this?
Well, every month we're trying for every month
Right.
to focus on one person, give them a whole page of their remembrances, and they have some pretty good remembrances. Not only funny, some interesting things, but they've done a lot, and they've seen Greensboro change, along with Judaism change. Temple Emanuel is a great focus for change in the religion, because as I said, when I was president 30 years ago, it was choir music, organ music, Friday night only,
Yeah.
Sunday school. Nothing happened on Saturday. Everybody went shopping or whatever.
Right.
It was different.
And the culture has really shifted.
The culture has shifted. I think we're more in line with what the conservative was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And the conservative has swung the pendulum to orthodoxy. However,
Yeah. I think we just see these, like you said, we see these changes happening. Yeah.
but change is good.
Absolutely.
Change is good. And it can change again. But we're on a good foothold right now. I hope we stay there for a long, long time.
Yeah. So already you focused on a couple of stories. You talked with Edgar Marks.
Edgar Marks,
Yeah.
who was 99 at the time,
Yeah.
and had stories of meeting Ben Gurion
Right.
in Israel and doing $3 doctor visits, and also helping with 2 epidemics.
Right.
Born in the Spanish flu epidemic, and then he helped polio and penicillin. That was a new thing in the 40s, and he was, in med school at least.
Yeah.
So we did him, and then we did Betty Roth, who was the epitome of a lady. She had a charmed life, but she worked at it.
Right.
And very interesting. Very interesting. Now, she is Jewish, and her husband was Jewish. Her girls are not. And she's sad about that. But there's always time.
That's right.
There's always time.
That's right.
People change.
Yeah. What brought you to Greensboro?
Bill sold upholstery fabric,
Uh-huh.
and he was in California. Nobody wanted upholstery fabric in California, so it was go east. So we decided, when we had 2 little babies then, a 6-month-old and a 2-year-old when we moved.
Right.
And my neighbor asked me where I belong, what church do I go to, and we were best friends.
Right.
And my kids went to Sunday school, and I learned Judaism because I was raised Catholic
Okay.
through my kids. And then it was hard because I didn't have to convert.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a terrible thing because I didn't know anything. Why should I be Jewish?
Right.
How can I be Jewish without knowing anything? And I became sisterhood president because I'm very social. I love all these people.
Right.
And anyway, from sisterhood, I got on a federation list somehow and went to Israel.
Right.
And then realized when I was in Israel that there were secular people there. There were people who didn't stay with all the rules of orthodoxy.
Right.
And they were Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
And they had every claim to be Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, hey, my mother was Jewish. I have a claim to be Jewish.
Right.
Came back. I didn't even step off the bottom layer of that bus, and the Federation picked me for women's campaign.
Okay.
I finished the women's campaign, and Temple slated me for presidency.
Amazing.
And the rest is my life. And now everything is quiet again. But I'm head of the Jewish spiritual life in Wellspring.
Right.
And we're trying to get a little more active. Wellspring has been so welcoming. And like I said, we had a little program on Rosh Hashanah.
Right.
More non-Jews showed up. They're so interested.
Yeah. And you had Rabbi Fisher over. Rabbi Fisher and I were over there not long ago.
To introduce you as head rabbi, and
Thank you.
and the first woman rabbi in Temple Emanuel.
Yeah.
And she seems like she's going to do a great job.
We're really excited about what she's doing with the congregation.
Good. And we hope that you're over at Wellspring. It's hard for the Wellspring people to get here, but Sue Clow is back in town. That means she'll wake everybody up.
Good, yeah.
She's active.
I'm really glad to hear Sue's back in town. And yeah, Wellspring is a wonderful community. And, one of the things I'm excited about, in having put this digital, the cameras and the video that we have in Temple now, is that if folks aren't going to be coming over here, there's also a way to tune in and to see what we're doing on Shabbat or on some of the other community things that we've been doing. And
right.
I know that's one of the things that's been in the back of our mind for those who aren't able to get here, not only during COVID times, where we're still, finding our way, although I think we've done a pretty decent job with that.
Done a great job with that.
But longer term, and that's great. But I'm looking forward to getting over to Wellspring with you more often.
Well, and we could use some help with the archives. You've been a big help with.
Well, thanks.
You've been a big help. So we've done 3 so far, and it's so interesting.
Yeah.
These people should be remembered because they, have lived through history.
Yeah.
And it's very funny. The one that we did this month, his best friend is the brother of the one we did last month.
Okay.
So Greensboro was a very tight community. Of course, it was Fisher Park. All these people grew up in Fisher Park.
Right.
And then moved to the outskirts of Greensboro, which is still inside Greensboro, of course. But it was interesting.
If you could have a message that you would give to current and future leadership of Temple Emanuel, right? Speaking to the rabbi, but also to those who are going to lead this congregation, what advice would you give them?
Be aware that everybody has a different way of praying, of accepting Judaism.
Yeah.
And everybody belongs. Everybody belongs here. But some just won't do things the same way you do. And you can't have one way to do things. You have people, the older people, they're not ready to sing. The younger people are gung-ho for singing and happy. And you can all get along.
I think so too. Yeah.
We can reach every one of them. and it'll be different. You have already, you have a calmness about you that is well liked,
Thanks, Mitch.
and I think it's special. But don't forget, and some people don't want calmness, some people do.
No. Listen, what was it said? We're supposed to, comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable as rabbis, and we do that.
You do that?
Yeah.
Well, good. I feel like I'm in the afflicted part. I need a little
There
push.
we go.
Need a little kick.
Let me say Chag Sameach to you, and thank you for this visit. It just has been great catching up with you and hearing the stories. All right.
Okay. Well, thank
Chag
you for doing
Sameach.
it.
Thank you.